theorized in another video that D&D might have ruined the last season on purpose as a way to get revenge on George because he tried to blame them for all the show's problems after the 4th season. Even though I think everyone knows the real reason there was a drop in quality was because he didn't finish another book for them to adapt. There were just way too many things that were the complete opposite of what would have made sense that it had to be ruined on purpose. But what if Game of Thrones can't be ruined? What if the story is so genius that it makes perfect sense, even when it doesn't? I noticed a few details that could help explain what happened in the last 2 seasons, and I was able to come up with 4 theories that might make some of the plotlines make more sense. The Night King won the Game of Thrones, Arya died in Braavos, the War of 3 Gods, and the one I'm going to talk about today, Littlefinger as Azor Ahai. Now this started as Littlefinger killed the Night King, but that idea kind of bled over into Arya died in Braavos, and I wanted this to focus on why Littlefinger's death makes sense and save the more complicated connection to the Faceless Man for another video. Littlefinger had probably the most disrespectful conclusion of any character in any show ever. He started out as the genius level puppet master that was always 5 steps ahead of everyone, only to end up getting outsmarted by 2 teenage girls like a Scooby-Doo villain. Something only book readers will notice is the similarities with the story's modern characters and many of the legendary figures from the past. Tyrion is a lot like Lan the Clever, Robert Baratheon has a lot of similarities with Garth Greenhand, and Dany's path is really similar to Princess Nymeria. Now the way the stories are told also makes it seem like these characters could actually be multiple people, that all had their stories combined over time until they ended up being one legendary figure. Azor Ahai definitely sounds like it was more than one person because he created a magical sword and he was good enough to end the long night with it, even though I don't think a blacksmith would also be a legendary warrior. It's more likely that there was a blacksmith that created something like Valyrian steel and he made a sword for the best fighter from each region, and that's why every culture has an Azor Ahai legend. But how does this apply to Littlefinger? He's not a great warrior and he definitely doesn't know how to make a sword, so even if Azor Ahai was more than one person, where does he fit into this legend? Azor Ahai was a legendary hero that ended the Long Night thousands of years ago. He goes by different names in different places, but the weapon he used was a sword called Lightbringer. If the book story is anything like the show, it's obvious how the sword ended the Long Night, but it's the way the sword was made that I want to focus on. Azor Ahai spent 30 days making the first sword and then he stuck it in the water. When that sword broke, he spent 50 days making a new one and then he stuck it into a lion. When that one broke too, he spent 100 days making the final sword, and when he stuck it into the heart of the woman he loved, it became Lightbringer. The Valyrian steel dagger is the weapon used to kill the Night King, so in the show, the dagger is Lightbringer. And although Littlefinger didn't physically make the weapon or use it to kill the Night King, he is the one that put it through all the requirements for it to become Lightbringer. Now we have to remember that prophecies and legends always end up being more complicated than they sound, and they're always presented as riddles and allegories. So the story of how Lightbringer was made might be symbolic, and it could be a truncated version of a much more complicated process. The prince that was promised is a prophecy that says Azor Ahai will be reborn, and he'll use a newly forged Lightbringer to end the Long Night once again. Now I said a minute ago that legendary figures from the past were most likely multiple people because many of them lived for hundreds or thousands of years and they're given credit for doing multiple things that one person couldn't do in a lifetime. Now I know the book and the show are most likely going to have a very different ending, but I think in the show, Azor Ahai is a combination of Arya, Jon Snow, and Littlefinger. Littlefinger created Lightbringer, Jon made it possible for the Night King to cross the wall, and Arya used the weapon to kill him. But in 1,000 years, the legend will probably make it seem like Jon did everything. Now the first time we see the dagger is when the Catspaw tried to kill Bran, and this is the first step in the process of it becoming Lightbringer. The most widely accepted idea is that Joffrey sent an assassin to kill Bran because he wanted to impress Robert. But can you imagine a 13-year-old Joffrey finding an assassin in Winterfell to kill one of Ned Stark's kids? He would have to get money, steal the dagger, find an assassin, then tell him to set a fire as a distraction so everyone would leave the room. Why would he go through all that trouble for something he wouldn't even get credit for? The only person who had the resources, cunning, and the motivation to pull this off was Littlefinger. But what if Littlefinger's plan wasn't actually to kill Bran? What if he wanted to give him the dagger in secret, but the Catspaw just misunderstood the message? The messages sent by ravens are usually written in riddles and codes, and if Littlefinger wanted it to be a secret, he couldn't risk anyone reading it. Just think about this. He is the one that directly gave the dagger to Bran in season 7, so what if this was his plan the whole time? Lightbringer was made by sticking the weapon into water, then a lion, and then into the heart of the woman he loved. We don't know who the Catspaw is, but his outfit tells us that he's from the Riverlands. We don't know who the dagger actually belonged to, but Littlefinger saying it belonged to Tyrion was the spark that would eventually destroy House Lannister. And Cat Stark taking the dagger to King's Landing was the reason her husband and son got killed. So the dagger would have been put into water, then it would have killed the lion, and then finally into the heart of the woman he loved. All the requirements for the dagger to become Lightbringer were completed before he took it to Winterfell so it could be used to kill the Night King. Now, I said earlier that Littlefinger's death was one of the worst endings for any character in any show ever, but what if his death was the final part of the prophecy? According to the legend, when Azor Ahai stuck the sword into Nisa's heart, she screamed and it left a crack across the face of the moon. And where do we see moons in the Seven Kingdoms? In the Vale, where Littlefinger's from. The Mountains of the Moon, the Gates of the Moon, the Moon Brothers clan, the Moon Door, even the sigil of House Aaron is a falcon in the moon. Everything points to Littlefinger, but his motivations will make more sense when I explore his connection to the Faceless Men. In the next video, Arya died in Bravos.